Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Ukraine suffers extensive infrastructure damage and supply issues. Continued fighting persists despite ceasefire reports. Democrats release additional Epstein photographs quickly. The Thai stock market experiences uncertainty due to political and economic factors. Belarus releases prisoners following negotiations with the U.S. The Scotch whisky industry confronts global economic challenges. A coastal crisis unfolds with banana container damage. The TikTok sale is delayed with an extended deadline. The DR Congo-Rwanda conflict worsens under Trump's failed peace deal. The EU maintains a freeze on Russia's frozen funds due to Ukraine funding disagreements. Venezuela's allies are losing support from Russia and China. Eritrea withdraws from Igad amid Ethiopia tensions. Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi arrested in Iran. Iranian authorities detain tanker crew after Gulf of Oman seizure. Scotland faces significant flood risk with an amber rain warning. Ukraine faces widespread infrastructure damage and supply disruptions. A series of escalating Russian attacks across Ukraine are causing widespread damage to critical infrastructure and severely disrupting essential supply chains. Over 1 million Ukrainian households are currently without electricity following overnight strikes targeting energy and industrial facilities, with 5 regions impacted and multiple injuries reported. Intensified Russian attacks, particularly during the winter months, are exacerbating the situation. Simultaneously, Russian strikes have decimated Ukraine's medical supply chain. Warehouses supplying the vast majority of Ukrainian pharmacies have been destroyed, resulting in the loss of approximately 200 million worth of medicines, representing up to 30% of the country's monthly supply. Key pharmaceutical distributors, such as BADM and Optima Pharm, have suffered significant losses, with warehouses repeatedly targeted, causing fires and total destruction. Further complicating matters, a Turkish car ferry, the Sanctions, was struck in Odessa, triggering a fire and highlighting Russia's threats to disrupt maritime trade. This incident occurred shortly after Turkish President Erdogan suggested a limited ceasefire for energy and port infrastructure, a proposal Russia has so far rejected, citing Ukrainian drone attacks against its Shadow Fleet tankers. The attack on the Sanctions, carrying essential food supplies, underscores the ongoing tensions in the Black Sea. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, reported that Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant temporarily lost all off-site power due to widespread military activity, necessitating constant power supply for reactor cooling. These events are interwoven with diplomatic efforts, including a planned meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss a proposed peace agreement, which includes a contentious territorial arrangement. Turkey continues to play a crucial role, seeking to mediate and safeguard shipping routes, particularly the Bosphorus Strait, a vital artery for Ukrainian grain exports and Russian oil. The ongoing conflict and its impact on critical infrastructure and supply chains remain a significant challenge for Ukraine. Continued border fighting amidst ceasefire claims and tensions remain high along the disputed border between Thailand and Cambodia, despite claims of a ceasefire brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump. Heavy fighting continues, marked by Thai airstrikes against Cambodian infrastructure and retaliatory rocket attacks. Since Monday, both countries have engaged in intense artillery and rocket exchanges, resulting in civilian injuries and property damage. The conflict stems from a long-standing border dispute dating back over a century, exacerbated by recent incidents involving landmines and troop movements. Following a series of phone calls with Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul and Cambodian counterpart Hun Manet, Trump asserted an agreement for a cessation of hostilities. However, neither leader immediately confirmed the agreement, and fighting persisted. Thailand accused Cambodia of violating the peace declaration by attacking civilians and damaging property, justifying defensive actions. Cambodia, in turn, requested an investigation into the initial firing of shots. The Thai military has conducted airstrikes, notably destroying the Chum Nia Bridge in Persat province, a key Cambodian logistics route. These strikes followed reports of Cambodian troop reinforcements near the border. Simultaneously, Cambodian forces have launched rocket barrages targeting Thai positions. The Thai military has evacuated residents from border areas, including those near Koh Kong, due to the escalating violence. The U.S. president's intervention involved multiple calls to both leaders, aiming to stabilize the situation. Despite this effort, the conflict remains active, with ongoing accusations of ceasefire violations and continued military deployments. The situation is further complicated by disagreements over the responsibility for initiating the hostilities, with both sides blaming each other for laying landmines and deploying troops. The long-term resolution to the border dispute remains elusive. with the immediate focus on de-escalating the fighting and securing the safety of civilians. The Chumnia Bridge destruction highlights the strategic importance of the border region and the potential for further damage to critical infrastructure. The conflict has prompted international concern and calls for a peaceful resolution to the protracted dispute. Democrats release second batch of Epstein photos within hours. Democrats have released a significant second batch of photographs from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, continuing their investigation into the financier's network of connections involving prominent figures. The release, timed within hours of the initial publication, expands the already substantial collection of images obtained via subpoena. The new set includes images of Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, King Charles III, Woody Allen, Larry Summers, Alan Dershowitz, Richard Branson, and numerous other high-profile individuals. These photographs, totaling nearly 80, offer further glimpses into Epstein's relationships with some of the world's most powerful men. The investigation, spearheaded by the House Oversight Committee, aims to uncover the extent of Epstein's influence and any potential wrongdoing by those associated with him. While the images do not inherently imply guilt, their existence raises serious questions and fuels ongoing scrutiny. The Democrats are demanding full transparency and accountability, emphasizing the need to support survivors of Epstein's alleged crimes. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries stated that the release is part of an effort to hold the administration accountable and ensure justice for Epstein's survivors. He reiterated the party's commitment to pushing for the Department of Justice to comply with a congressionally mandated deadline to release all files related to the case by December 19th. Jeffries underscored the importance of full transparency to allow the American people to access the truth. Republicans on the House Oversight Committee have accused Democrats of selectively releasing photographs and making targeted redactions to create a false narrative about President Trump. The committee's focus remains on questioning the motives behind the release and demanding a thorough investigation into the origins of the photographs. The ongoing investigation is tied to a broader effort to understand the full scope of Epstein's activities and the connections between his network and individuals within the U.S. government and global elite. The Department of Justice's impending deadline to release all documents related to the Epstein case is a critical component of this ongoing inquiry. The Thai stock exchange faces uncertainty amid political and economic shifts. The Thai stock market is experiencing a period of significant volatility, driven by a confluence of factors including political developments, economic forecasts, and global market trends. The SET index has declined sharply, with concerns regarding the Thai-Cambodia border conflict, the potential for a premature parliamentary dissolution, and evolving interest rate expectations contributing to investor caution. Recent economic data reveals sluggish growth, with Thailand's third-quarter GDP growth at just 1.2%, below market expectations. This, coupled with a U.S. tech stock sell-off and concerns about artificial intelligence valuations, has weighed on market sentiment. The Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates by 25 basis points, coupled with a revised GDP growth forecast, has further complicated the outlook. The impending dissolution of Parliament, announced unexpectedly, has introduced immediate uncertainty. Analysts predict a short-term negative impact, citing difficulties in managing the border conflict and potential disruptions to government stimulus programs, specifically the Con La Krueng Plus co-payment scheme. Concerns are also centered around the continuation of the Thailand Individual Savings Account. EET is a scheme designed to boost long-term savings and channel capital into the stock market. Adding to the pressure, the Bank of Thailand is increasingly expected to reduce interest rates at its December 17th meeting, potentially by 0.25%, driven by heightened political uncertainty. This expectation is fueled by the premature parliamentary dissolution and the lack of a clear focus on economic revival by the likely winning party. Despite these challenges, certain sectors remain attractive. Analysts recommend Advanced Info Service, ADVNC, CPAL, CPAL, CM City Cement, SCC, Thai Asphalt, Tasco as potential investment targets, citing their performance, dividend yields, and alignment with ESG funds. The ongoing tax saving season and peak consumer spending ahead of the New Year holiday are also anticipated to provide market support. However, the overall outlook remains cautious, contingent on the resolution of political uncertainties and the implementation of effective economic policies. Belarus releases prisoners. U.S. lifts sanctions following negotiations. Recent developments have seen Belarus release 123 prisoners, including the prominent opposition activist Maria Kolesnikova, following a negotiated agreement with the United States. The deal, brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy for Belarus, John Coyle, has led to the lifting of sanctions on potash, a vital component in fertilizer production, and a significant Belarusian export. This action signifies a normalization of relations between the two countries. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who is not recognized by the European Union, has welcomed the end of his international isolation. Maria Kolesnikova, imprisoned since 2020 and often held in isolation, was handed over to Ukraine alongside 113 other prisoners. Ukraine's coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war facilitated the transfer, stating that the released individuals will be transported to Poland and Lithuania after receiving necessary medical assistance. The decision to send the prisoners to Ukraine was reportedly made by Lukashenko, an unexpected move according to opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya's spokesperson. Kolesnikova's sister, Tatiana Khomyk, expressed immense relief, confirming her siblings' well-being after a video call. Khomyk emphasized the crucial role of the U.S. administration and President Trump in securing Kolesnikova's freedom, alongside the Belarusian government's involvement in the negotiations. The potash sanctions lift is a key component of the broader agreement, aiming to improve Belarus's economic standing and reduce international pressure. This development represents a significant step towards easing the political tensions surrounding the country's authoritarian regime and its suppression of dissent, following contested elections 5 years prior. The release underscores the ongoing efforts to address the plight of political prisoners within Belarus and to foster a more stable and cooperative international environment. Scotch whisky industry faces significant challenges amidst global economic headwinds. The Scotch whisky industry is currently grappling with a severe downturn characterized by declining exports, weakened domestic demand, and significant operational adjustments. Key factors contributing to this challenging environment include persistent U.S. tariffs on single malt whiskeys, a slowdown in demand across various markets, and logistical difficulties. The Trump-era tariffs, remaining in place, have particularly impacted sales to the U.S., the industry's largest export market, with a 25% tariff expected to take effect next spring. Simultaneously, demand has weakened globally, influenced by broader economic conditions and increased costs. Shipments to China have plummeted by 31% in the first half of 2024, moving China from the 5th to 10th largest market for Scotch whisky. While India has emerged as a significant new market, with increased imports, the trade deal between the UK and India still faces ratification delays. Several distilleries are implementing production cuts, including Diageo, which has temporarily paused operations at Roseasel Maltings and temporarily halted distillation at Teenanich and Glenmorangie. Brown-Forman, owner of Glendronach and several smaller distilleries, has also reduced production and has closed Glenglassaugh Distillery for an extended period. The impact extends beyond the distilleries themselves, affecting suppliers such as barley farmers, who are experiencing reduced contract volumes and declining barley prices. Maltsters are also facing reduced demand, with a projected decrease in malted barley demand from approximately 1.8 million tons to 1.4 million tons. The industry's long-term planning horizon, typically 3 years to account for maturation times, is now under increased scrutiny. Furthermore, the industry relies heavily on imported used bourbon barrels, with Brown-Forman expressing concerns about continued low sales volumes. Strategic production adjustments, including temporary closures of distilleries like Benriach, are being undertaken to manage resources and mitigate the risk of overproduction, which could depress prices and erode the premium status of Scotch whisky. Despite these challenges, key players are focusing on adapting production to current market demands, while acknowledging the need for improved planning and investment to secure long-term sustainability within the industry. Thedigs banana container Carnage, a coastal crisis. 16 shipping containers, primarily filled with bananas and some avocados and plantains, fell overboard from the cargo ship Baltic Clipper off the coast of Bembridge on December 6, triggering a significant coastal incident. The containers washed ashore across West Sussex, including Selsey, Pagham Harbour, and Bognor Regis, creating scenes described as carnage and resembling polystyrene soup. No crew members were injured, and the cargo was deemed non-hazardous by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Authorities are actively engaged in the recovery operation, with HM Coast Guard utilizing an aircraft to locate the missing containers. Seatrade, the ship's owner, is cooperating closely with UK authorities and insurers. Volunteers are diligently clearing debris, particularly the foam insulation, but acknowledge the scale of the task, emphasizing the potential for ecological damage as the polystyrene breaks down and enters the marine ecosystem. Concerns have been raised about the potential toxicity of the debris, with tests revealing heavy metals like lead, arsenic, and cadmium found in plastic pellets previously washed ashore following a Southern Water incident. West Sussex County Council is leading the multi-agency cleanup effort, utilizing environmental management company Ambipar to assess the situation and develop a long-term plan. The Council is monitoring costs and expects the operation to take considerable time. Bognor Regis and Littlehampton MP Alison Griffiths is pressing the ship's operators and insurers to cover the cleanup expenses. This incident is not isolated. Previous unusual cargo discoveries, including a German submarine drugs and a dead elephant calf, have occurred along southeast shores. The Southern Water plastic pellet spill highlights a recurring issue with industrial incidents impacting coastal environments. The ongoing efforts focus on minimizing environmental damage and addressing the identified hotspots, but the long-term implications and potential for further contamination remain a significant concern. The situation underscores the vulnerability of coastal ecosystems to maritime accidents and the complexities of managing the resulting cleanup efforts. The local authority is expected to provide further updates in the coming days. TikTok sale stalls as deadline extended again. The sale of TikTok's U.S. operations is facing yet another delay, leaving a prospective billionaire investor in a state of uncertainty. Frank McCourt, a key investor, has reported being in limbo as the latest deadline for ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese owner, to complete the sale approaches. U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to grant a fifth extension, potentially pushing the deadline beyond the initially set January 2026. This delay stems from concerns regarding national security, primarily driven by anxieties about potential data access by the Chinese government. The situation originated with a congressional law passed in 2024, demanding ByteDance divest its U.S. operations due to perceived threats from Beijing. The law, signed by former President Donald Trump and subsequently upheld by the Supreme Court in early 2025, highlighted worries that ByteDance could be compelled to share user data with the Chinese government. TikTok and its owners have consistently refuted these claims, asserting that they operate independently and do not share user data with the Chinese government. Despite raising the necessary capital to acquire the platform, McCourt's investment is now contingent on the continued postponement of the sale. The protracted negotiations underscore the complex geopolitical considerations surrounding TikTok's operation in the United States. The ongoing delay impacts not only McCourt's investment, but also the broader timeline for resolving the national security concerns associated with the app's popularity among American users. The legal and political maneuvering surrounding TikTok's future in the U.S. continues, creating a significant uncertainty for both investors and the platform's user base. The situation remains fluid, with further extensions anticipated as the legal challenges persist. The digest Trump's shattered peace deal DR Congo-Rwanda conflict escalates. A recently signed peace deal between the DR Congo's President Félix Tshisekedi and Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, brokered under Donald Trump's leadership, has rapidly unraveled following the M23 rebel group's seizure of the strategically vital city of Uvira in South Kivu. The M23's offensive, backed by allegations of Rwandan support, occurred despite the signing of the agreement and represents a significant blow to the peace process. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz blamed Rwanda for escalating instability and moving towards war, echoing concerns about Rwandan troop presence in the region. The timing of the M23's attack, coinciding with the Washington signing, suggests a deliberate attempt to undermine the agreement. The M23's motives center on gaining leverage in negotiations, while the Rwandan government views Tshisekedi as untrustworthy. The capture of Uvira, a key transit point for Burundian troops, further complicates the situation. Burundi's involvement is critical, with approximately 10,000 Burundian troops stationed in South Kivu, ostensibly supporting the DR Congo army. However, the offensive has triggered a border closure and heightened tensions. The M23's actions have also created a significant humanitarian crisis, forcing around 50,000 people to flee into Burundi. The Qatar-led parallel peace process, intended to engage the M23 directly, is currently stalled due to the renewed conflict. The success of the U.S.-led initiative hinges on the Congolese army launching an operation to disarm the FDLR militia, a group linked to the 1994 genocide, but this appears unlikely given the current circumstances. Tensions are high as both the DR Congo and Rwanda accuse each other of violating the ceasefire. The U.S. and European powers are calling for an immediate halt to offensive operations and the withdrawal of Rwandan troops. The collapse of the deal underscores the deep-seated mistrust between the nations and the ongoing challenges in stabilizing the Great Lakes region. The future of the peace process remains uncertain, dependent on the willingness of key actors to prioritize diplomacy and address the underlying causes of the conflict. EU backs indefinite freeze on Russia's frozen cash amidst Ukraine funding dispute. The European Union is pursuing a plan to utilize frozen assets held by Euroclear, primarily belonging to Russia's central bank. to provide a 90 billion lifeline for Ukraine's economy over the next 2 years. This initiative is driven by Ukraine's severe financial shortfall exacerbated by nearly 4 years of the ongoing conflict with Russia. The total value of frozen assets stands at approximately 210 billion, with 185 billion held within Euroclear and 16-17 billion immobilized in Russia. The EU argues that utilizing the accrued interest on these assets, legally considered safe due to Russia's sanctions, is a justifiable reparations loan to rebuild what Russia has destroyed. Belgium, home to Euroclear, remains the most hesitant member state, citing significant legal risks and concerns about potential financial repercussions. Prime Minister Bart De Wever insists on robust guarantees to protect Belgium from potential damages or penalties, emphasizing Belgium's smaller economy and the potential strain on its financial stability. Concerns center around violating EU banking regulations, specifically regarding Euroclear's capital and liquidity requirements. The EU is exploring two primary funding options: raising capital on the markets with an EU budget guarantee. Belgium's preferred approach requiring unanimous approval, which faces resistance from Hungary and Slovakia, and loaning Ukraine funds directly from the frozen assets. The EU's executive, the European Commission, has assured Belgium that it has addressed concerns and is confident in safeguarding Euroclear. To streamline the process, EU ambassadors are set to utilize an emergency clause under Article 122 of the EU treaties, ensuring the indefinite freezing of Russia's central bank assets within the EU, eliminating the need for monthly unanimous votes. This decision is predicated on the ongoing immediate threat to the economic interests of the Union posed by the conflict. Negotiations are ongoing, with Belgium and the UK collaborating to guarantee Ukraine's freedom, democracy, and sovereignty. The key focus remains securing watertight guarantees for Euroclear to mitigate potential risks and ensure the stability of the international financial system. Venezuela's allies waver diminished support from Russia and China. Recent news indicates a significant shift in the international support surrounding Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, with Russia and China demonstrating a reduced willingness to provide robust assistance. The United States' increased military presence in the Caribbean, including strikes and the seizure of an oil tanker, has exacerbated this situation, prompting Maduro to request aid from both Moscow and Beijing at the end of October. However, neither country has offered substantial material support. Russia's commitment has been particularly weakened by its ongoing war in Ukraine, which has strained its finances and military resources, alongside facing Western sanctions. Similarly, China's support is tempered by its desire to maintain positive relations with the United States, particularly following recent tensions and tariffs. The economic collapse of Venezuela and the deterioration of its oil industry have also diminished Chinese interest. Experts highlight that Russia is unwilling to risk further sanctions, and China fears negative consequences if Maduro's regime were to fall. While Russia has previously provided military support, and Venezuela has purchased significant Chinese military equipment since 2005, the current situation suggests a move away from active defense. Despite these diminished commitments, both countries have offered verbal assurances of support, with Russia urging restraint from the Trump administration and Putin affirming his support to Maduro following the oil tanker seizure. However, concrete assistance remains absent. China's approach is focused on negotiating with any future government, prioritizing its own strategic interests. The U.S.'s actions, including military deployments and sanctions, have fundamentally altered the geopolitical landscape surrounding Venezuela, leaving Maduro increasingly isolated and reliant on increasingly hesitant allies. The situation underscores the complexities of international relations and the shifting priorities of major global powers. Eritrea withdraws from Igad amid rising tensions with Ethiopia. Eritrea's withdrawal from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Igad, reflects escalating tensions with neighboring Ethiopia and a broader dissatisfaction with the regional bloc's perceived failures. The move, announced by Eritrea's foreign ministry, stems from accusations that Igad has become a tool against Eritrea and failed to uphold its founding principles of regional stability and food security. This isn't a new development, as Eritrea previously exited Igad in 2007 during a border dispute with Ethiopia, only to rejoin in 2023. However, since its return, Eritrea has largely disengaged, participating minimally in Igad meetings and activities. The primary catalyst for Eritrea's departure is the intensifying dispute over access to the Red Sea, spearheaded by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Ahmed's demands have provoked a furious response from Asmara, further straining relations. This dispute is rooted in Ethiopia's historical landlocked status and its desire for maritime access, a point vehemently challenged by Eritrea. The situation is compounded by historical grievances, including accusations leveled against Eritrea of destabilizing Igad member states and interfering in internal conflicts, denials consistently made by Eritrea, which instead accused its neighbors of supporting Western powers aiming to destabilize it. The withdrawal underscores Igad's struggles to achieve regional stability and integration in the Horn of Africa, a region plagued by civil wars, terrorism, and intrastate conflicts. The bloc's inability to effectively address these challenges has fueled Eritrea's disillusionment. Furthermore, the situation is complicated by a long history of conflict, including a devastating war between the two nations in which over 100,000 people perished. The dispute over the Red Sea, coupled with Eritrea's accusations of Igad's bias, has created a deeply fractured environment. The involvement of figures such as Workney Jabayahu, the current head of Igad, adds to Eritrea's suspicions about the organization's impartiality. The withdrawal represents a significant setback for regional cooperation and highlights the deep-seated mistrust between Eritrea and Ethiopia, a dynamic that continues to impact the stability of the Horn of Africa. Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi arrested in Iran. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Narges Mohammadi was violently arrested in the eastern Iranian city of Mashhad by security forces, according to her foundation. The arrest occurred while she was attending a memorial ceremony for Khosrow Al-Akordi, a lawyer whose death Iranian human rights groups are investigating as suspicious. Simultaneously, several other activists were detained at the event, chanting slogans including "Death to the Dictator" and "Long Live Iran." The Nobel Committee expressed deep concern, demanding immediate clarification of Mohammadi's whereabouts, ensuring her safety, and releasing her unconditionally. This follows a temporary release in December 2024, granted for medical reasons after her detention in Avon prison since 2021, a period during which she served multiple sentences. Taghi Rahmani, Mohammadi's husband, reported the violent arrest, stating that a witness observed the event. He characterized the arrest as an act of revenge and a violation of human rights laws. The arrest highlights an escalating crackdown by Iranian authorities on activists, particularly women's rights advocates. Iranian Human Rights has called for an independent inquiry into Al-Akordi's death, citing suspicious circumstances. The situation underscores the ongoing challenges faced by human rights defenders in Iran and the international community's concern for Mohammadi's well-being and safety. The Nobel Committee's strong statement reflects the global condemnation of this action and reinforces the importance of upholding human rights principles within the country. The arrest represents a significant setback for the cause of women's rights in Iran and raises serious questions about the country's commitment to international human rights standards. Iranian authorities detain tanker crew following Gulf of Oman seizure. Iranian authorities have detained 18 crew members of a foreign-flagged tanker seized in the Gulf of Oman on Friday. The detention follows the vessel's interception, carrying an estimated 6 million liters of illegally smuggled fuel, as reported by Iranian media outlets on Saturday. The Hormozgan province judiciary confirmed the arrest, specifying that the captain of the tanker was among those taken into custody as part of an ongoing investigation. The detained crew members originate from India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, according to Fars, a semi-official Iranian news agency. The investigation centers on multiple violations committed by the tanker, including disregarding official stop orders, attempting to evade authorities, and lacking necessary navigation and cargo documentation. These actions highlight the ongoing challenges Iran faces in combating widespread fuel smuggling. This incident underscores Iran's persistent efforts to curtail fuel smuggling, a significant issue driven by the nation's subsidized fuel prices and the devaluation of its currency. Smuggling operations typically target neighboring countries and Gulf Arab states, exploiting price differences and circumventing local regulations. The seizure of the tanker represents a direct response to this illicit trade. Authorities are currently investigating the full scope of the operation and the individuals involved in orchestrating the smuggling. The detention is expected to further escalate tensions in the strategically vital Gulf of Oman, a crucial waterway for global oil shipments. The investigation is ongoing, and further details regarding the crew's fate and the outcome of the legal proceedings are anticipated. Scotland faces significant flood risk due to amber rain warning. A widespread amber rain warning has been issued for southwest Scotland, encompassing Dumfries and Galloway, the Scottish borders, parts of South Lanarkshire and Ayrshire, commencing at midnight and lasting throughout Sunday. This follows a prolonged period of heavy rain expected to deliver 50-70 mm across the amber zone, potentially rising to 130 mm in the Galloway Hills and southern uplands. The Met Office warns of significant flood risks associated with fast-flowing water and rivers, posing a danger to life. The amber warning is coupled with existing yellow weather warnings across much of the country, including Glasgow, Fife and Stirling, with durations varying by location. Transport Scotland has advised against non-essential travel due to the anticipated disruptions, while Police Scotland urges motorists to drive to the conditions, acknowledging increased stopping distances and the need for alternative routes. Supt. Andrew Barclay of the Road Policing Unit emphasized the importance of preparedness, recommending sufficient fuel, warm clothing, food, water, and a charged mobile phone for travelers. Scottish Government Transport Secretary Fiona Heslop stressed the need for proactive planning, urging individuals to check routes, follow Police Scotland's travel advice, and adjust driving according to the prevailing conditions. She specifically advised those planning train, ferry, or plane travel to confirm service status. The combination of heavy rainfall, strong southwesterly winds, and the resulting travel disruptions represents a serious hazard across Scotland, necessitating heightened awareness and cautious behavior. The situation is being closely monitored by the Met Office and emergency services, with further updates anticipated.